What's the worst thing you've ever heard a teacher say at school? Okay, I have one. When I was in elementary, I got confused at lunchtime and threw my food out early and wandered outside for recess. Alone. Realizing my mistake and having no idea what to do, I went back inside and told a lunch lady and asked what I should do. She dragged me by the arm to the center of the lunchroom with a live mic and informed everyone of my mistake and how no one should do what I did because it was a bad thing. She told everyone I was going to get expelled. I was sobbing at that point. I kept asking her what expelled meant, but she didn't answer me. All I knew was that it was a bad thing. I never told my mom until years later. And no, I didn't get actually expelled. First day on the job, teacher walks in as the new CAD teacher and his name's on the board. It looks like you'd pronounce it as man. He announces right away that it's not and that you will be thrown out of his class if you call him that. He does roll and gets to a French African name that looks like it might be pronounced for a gay slur starting with F. Does not use better judgment and uses that slur as a last name. It's pronounced Faj J. Usman. Kid obviously had to deal with this problem his whole life and was not keen on the mix up. New teacher blows up and is hollering at this 16-year-old who's not backing down. Takes a bit but they both disappear. Teacher was never seen in the building again. This was first period. First day of school. When I was in high school, a gym teacher came up to me one day towards the end of class when everyone was just kind of freely shooting basketballs and hanging out on the bleachers. I was standing by myself and walked up and asked me something about the neighboring town. He said, "Did you know that in Olney, they used to hang niggers with velvet?" Double quote. And then just walked away. It was the only time he ever talked to me. I'm white and he was a black guy. Maybe 6'8". I think he was in the NBA for one season or something. Everyone loved him, so I guess he was just messing with me. But he got me pretty good. Male teacher was talking about the dress code to me and a friend of mine during lunch. He stated he doesn't like seeing a bunch of fatties in short shorts, but then gestured towards a thin girl in short shorts walking up the step and said, "But that I don't mind." I just wish I was f***ing dead. Overheard by complete chance while wandering the corridors during a free period. Turned right back around and took the long route so I wouldn't have to walk past the classroom. It was a bit of a broken pedestal moment for me. But I never told anyone else about it. The teacher who said it was one of our most beloved history teachers, who we later found out had been stopped from committing suicide at least twice by one of the deputy heads, who'd been friends with him since their university days, in the past. Not stopped us and talked things out and convinced him it wasn't the best way to deal with his problems, but as in physically picked up and dragged away from the window. He, the deputy head, was quite intimidating as a teacher. But we gained a lot of respect for him after learning that. My science teacher in 7th grade called a Mexican kid in my class a fence hopper once during the middle of class. In the same vein, I had a high school teacher that nicknamed everyone. His name for my friend from Syria was Green Card. My culinary teacher in high school did this. He straight up called me Pablo even though that wasn't my name simply because I was Hispanic. He called the Middle Eastern kid terrorist and the redneck kid NASCAR. I wish I was joking. Not the worst ever. But it really f***ed with me. There are literally millions of other cute little Chinese girls just like you that are much better than you and can replace you. Edit. For context, I study animation and am also Chinese. I was asking my teachers for advice on how to get better at drawing faster, as I wasn't very happy with my skill level and was stressed about being left behind by my peers. Most of my teachers were very supportive, but obviously not all of them lol. I did work very hard to spite him, though, and did get a scholarship from it. You just can't break my spirit. I go to school in the US, and he happened to be a white male teacher. But there are mean people from every race and gender. And good people say shitty things sometimes. 2. Thank you for all the support. 3. And for others asking about when I said this was not the worst ever, I meant that other people have probably heard worse from teachers. I guess haha. One of my college professors straight up said one day, from my experience, African American students tend to drop my class the most. It's probably too hard for them. Any of you notice how we haven't seen that one black chick who used to sit in the front row for weeks now? Double quote. Guy was immediately shot down when the black chick raised her hand from the back row saying she'd been here the whole time. She just moved to the back row cause that's where her boyfriend was sitting. I wonder if Rosa Parks would have gone to the back of the bus if her boyfriend was there? I may be wrong. Please correct me otherwise. But wasn't the Rosa Parks thing because she was at the front of the black part of the bus and she was asked to move further back as a white man wanted her seat? Or did she literally go FCKU bigots and sit right up front? Just want to know, as I have heard both versions and want to be sure. One day in a history class, my professor, who is at least 80 years old, was talking about bedfellows in Victorian England. And was saying how common it was for men to sleep together. He used himself as an example and said that he used to sleep with his grandfather all the time as a child. After he said that, though, he looked at the ground and said to himself, audibly, I still wonder to this day if he molested me. Then he looked back at us, shrugged, and said, oh well. Too late to know for sure now. It was fascinating to see someone overcome deep-seated trauma so quickly. This wasn't said directly to me, but in middle school I had a teacher grab me from the lunch table and drag me to the principal's office. After grilling me for a while and telling me I know what I did, they finally revealed to me that the teacher stated she witnessed me suggestively sucking my thumb while staring at a female friend of mine. I was just biting my nail. Age of 9. Lost my father in a horrific accident. I returned to school a few days later and after attendance was taken, the teacher said to me in front of the class got together and sent flowers to your father's funeral. I paid your share, so make sure you bring in $2 tomorrow as I need to be paid back. She then went on with the lessons. As many have asked what happened, I asked to see the school nurse and was sent home. Once home I told my mother. Returning to school 2 days later I never saw the teacher again. I don't know how my mother handled it. When I was about 9, our teacher asked the class what we wanted to be when we grew up. One kid said he wanted to be a bin man, a garbage man. For US readers? The teacher went into a rant, saying that jobs like these were for the lowest, most unintelligent people in society, and that he should aspire to be better than that. Finally she asked why he wanted to be a bin man anyway. Because my dad's one, said the kid, by now in tears. In 6th grade, there was an Indian girl in our class, and she was getting teased because of the way she smelled. She didn't smell bad. She just smelled like Indian food, and our teacher did this thing where she would pull a student into the hall and talk to them either about bullying or being bullied. Well, she took this girl into the hall and had one of her talks with her. The teacher then comes back into class and tells us all that she had a talk with the girl and explained to her that maybe her family could eat their more traditional foods on the weekends and more American foods during the week. I will never forget being 11-12 and thinking, is she crazy? I felt so bad for the girl. I told my mom about it when I got home that day, so my mom started packing me Syrian lunches. My mom was half Syrian and called the teacher and bitched her out for it. The teacher then apologized to the class and the little girl. My design and technology teacher really resented that I had very little interest in her subject. She asked me what I wanted to do when I left school. I told her I was going to do something with music. I was in all the school bands, orchestras, choirs, etc. and played piano at grade 8 level. She told me to be successful at that someone had to be either extremely talented or very hardworking, and that I was neither. My brother abused me as a child. It started around 3rd or 4th grade, and when I was in 4th grade he held a pocket knife my dad had given him up to my neck. I told my class about it because I was scared. My teacher took me to the hallway and told me, don't say those things or you'll be taken away from your family. I never mentioned the abuse to anyone again until 7th grade because of the warning this teacher gave me. It only got worse after the knife incident. My history of art teacher is an old man. Ready to be retired but can't because there is none who could replace him. Anyways. He is pretty strict but sometimes likes to joke around. I sit in the first row and one day he was talking about some painting. Stops mid-sentence, looks at me for solid 10 seconds and goes, "My name. Your lips are very red. Just like strawberry." I wanted to die while everyone laughed. My classmates even joked that he had crush on me. Edit. I wanted to clear some things. I am in high school and I am a girl. Many of my teachers used to comment on my hair, lipstick and makeup in general, my outfits etc. But none of them made comments in overly creepy voice while looking at me like they want to eat me. It creeped the hell out of me. Edit 2. I have to point out a few things. 1. He wasn't referring to my lipstick but to my natural color of the lips. Why me out of 20 the girls I don't know? 2. My other teachers don't make comments that can come off as rude or creepy. Usually my female teachers like to talk about makeup so they give me comments like testing out new makeup, my name. I really like that eyeshadow or something like that. My male techers usually comment on something more visible like hair or shirt. None of them were creepy. I wouldn't mind if he complimented my lipstick but he commented on my natural lips and it was creepy as hell. Your son is retarded MRS. George. To my mom. Right in front of me. FCKU. Bitch. I'm no genius. But I'm by no means unintelligent. Turns out you were a lazy piece of shit unworthy of the title teacher. Luckily for me. MRS. Galbraith was your total opposite. That woman was an angel. Wherever you are. MRS. Galbraith. I love you. You are a fantastic teacher and a fantastic person. My theater teacher in high school told me I was too fat to act unless I played the fat idiot sidekick. Would never be in a musical. And that I wouldn't make it in the world of theater. About a year later her husband cast me in a musical and one other show because he really liked me. All of her comments for the 4 years I was in high school really f***ed me up and made me rethink wanting to do theater, which is one of my only passions. I'm glad I stuck with it and continued on through my senior year even though she was still awful to me. When I was in 6th grade the second election for Bush Jr. was coming around and they were teaching us about political parties, and being a kid I asked which political party I belonged to because as a kid with no prior knowledge I wanted to know if I had one. My teacher then proceeded to tell the class that everyone is and must be a Republican or will burn in the fiery pits of hell with the dirty no morals having Democrats. Turns out you don't go to hell for not being a Republican. In UK, year 11, age 15/16. An English literature teacher once told my class, polar bears almost exclusively eat penguins. I was not good at literature but I was good at science subjects and I was not this teacher's favorite pupil. So when she said this I quite quickly argued back saying that she was wrong. She protested and I explained that polar bears live in that Arctic Ocean and while there are various species of penguin, none of them live in the northern hemisphere. This was an open argument during class and she offered to Google the answer. So she did, and when I was proven correct by the internet, she sent me out the class. As a teacher, this crap infuriates me. If a kid proves me wrong, I openly admit it and give them kudos for doing it. Throwing a kid out because they stood up for what they know is right because you're too insecure to let a teenager prove you wrong is the kind of thing that makes kids hate school. Man. That girl has some jacked up teeth. He said it about one of my friends who had cancer and had half of her jaw removed. I told the principal. The teacher admitted he said it and then I got kicked out of school. How is it that you get kicked out? Who knows? The principal pulled me into his office and the teacher was there. They yelled at me until I cried. He was yelling about how I could have made him lose his job and how selfish it was of me. Couldn't I keep a secret? He said it in front of a class of 30 with as soon as my friend left the room. He's still teaching. And that was 12 years ago. I thought I did the right thing. But what the hell do I know? Paraphrasing slightly. But there's no such thing as Asperger's syndrome. This is just attention-seeking behavior. Said to me. About me. Admittedly, this was over 20 years ago, when not everybody had heard of it. But still, I'd had 2 days of tests and brain scans resulting in a long-form diagnosis explanation which my parents had shared with my teachers. Every other teacher basically reacted with, "Oh. So that's why he's so weird. Okay. We can work with this. But not this guy. FCKU. Mr. M." A teacher told the story of when he was working at a girls' summer camp. The showers had broken down and he had to go fix it for the girls who were mid-shower. They had the girls put their faces to the walls for some reason. Naked bums all along the walls. He told it as if it was a funny anecdote. I was creeped the FCK out and can't imagine how the girls who were going to said camp felt about the story. I was at rugby practice and we were doing stretches and we were all lying on the ground and my friend has his head positioned close to my other friend's crotch. My friend says quite loudly, "It looks like you're about to suck my dick," when he realized that our coach, who is also a teacher at our school, heard him. He started to apologize for swearing when our coach says he wants a meal not a snack. MRS. Noodle. My 3rd grade math teacher. 1987. I missed 2 weeks of school due to a horrible case of chickenpox and fell behind with whatever it was that we were working on. A month after I came back to school, I was still struggling with math, but was too young and scared to ask for help. We had a test that I failed. So, MRS. F-King Noodle brought my 3rd grade self up to the front of the classroom and shamed me. She told the entire classroom that Bifaha will never succeed in math. Double quote. I ended up crying and going to the nurse with a stomach ache. Double quote. I'll never forget how awful she was to me. And I struggled with math for the rest of the time that I was in school. How dare you write that? You're practically emotionally handicapped. It's psychopathic. Double quote. Said to me at 12, not even half a year after my mom died. She made us write an essay about our home life, which in retrospect was a f-ked up excuse to snoop into my situation, and didn't like how I used humor to cope, so she pulled me out of the class to yell at me for 5 minutes for not being sad enough. I don't even remember what I wrote besides cracking some jokes about my dad's outfits. My best friend lost her dad to cancer when she was 12 and her mom taught her to use humor to cope. She likes to tell people he died and then ask them if they want to see a picture of her and her dad. And then she shows them a picture of her smiling next to his tombstone. Her mom died in February. They cremated her, put her in a wine bottle, and threw her at the Las Vegas sign. We make jokes about how nuts she was. LMAO. It's impossible to repay a male if he gets a boner. He wanted it from a middle school government teacher. So, by that logic, a woman isn't raped if she gets wet and or has an orgasm? I'm pretty sure people believe that as well. Next day tabloids headline. 45-year-old male teacher raped by students after claiming men can't be raped. As an autistic that has been hated by almost every teacher for all the wrong reasons, I have heard plenty. This ranges from slightly personal to straight up degrading. I have been called stupid, arrogant, hopeless, useless, and much worse. These might not sound as bad, but with my history of social issues and bullying, they all tie together to a long chain of hatred. Because of my ASD, I struggle to interpret directions and tasks the right way, which has impacted me all throughout school. Some teachers, yeah, more than 2, actually told me I was imagining things and just needed to admit that I was stupid instead of blaming it on a disease. Another teacher told me that ASD, and the whole spectrum, was synonymous with stupidity and that I would never make it anywhere. Another example of how, almost, every teacher treated me. My exam hadn't gone as well as I expected. I went up to my teacher after class and asked him what I could have done better or what areas I especially needed to improve on. He doesn't look at me. Says you just suck and walks away. No eye contact. Not a single word. He just walked. He is the most popular teacher in school and nobody ever notices him saying these things to me. Funny story. He led the anti-discrimination program at our school. Asshole. Young teacher called a student she finally snapped with a waste of sperm that his mother should have swallowed. Edit. I'll point out saying these were 16-year-old kids who didn't fit into normal education, so we're quite testing. She went on sick that day for stress and eventually left. Or I'm sure she'd have been fired. Pretty brutal all the same. Poor guy was actually a decent kid, just a bit hyper. When I was in the 4th grade I lost my lines I was supposed to recite for a choir concert. I told my choir teacher and she said, well, you should have been more responsible, and she just walked away. Not an awful thing to say. Really. But rather rude. So come concert time. My solo was coming up. I walked up to the mic and said I don't know what to say because the teacher wouldn't give me the words even when I asked for them, and I walked away. There was a stunned silence and then a small commotion. I was taken off stage by the principal, who asked me why would I say that? To which I responded the truth, because she wouldn't give me the lines even after I told her I lost them. He just looked a little shocked and said okay, and I went on my way. Huh. My 5th grade teacher basically tried to turn me into a school shooter. So where do I start? I hope he doesn't come back after leaving me behind by myself on a walk and making me run in the summer heat with my asthma. What are you gonna do? Stab me with this pencil and then stab everyone else? Do it. You'd solve your problems that way. As I was having an emotional breakdown in class while she was getting my classmates to bully me. She even put the pencil next to my hand. He's a violent child and I think I know where he gets it from, she said to my mom as she was picking me up from school because I'd get bullied on my walk home. I still fking hate that monster of a woman. One of my HS teachers told us a story about one of his first job interviews after college. Starting out he was looking for an elementary job, and one of the first questions on the interview was one of the students misbehaves on the regular. How do you discipline them? Double quote. His reply. I'd lock the little bugger in a rabbit cage while the other little buggers watched. So they don't get any ideas. Double quote. He said just the confused and disturbed stares he got were incredible. Nobody laughed, which was his intention. Probably one of the best teachers I had in school. But the guy had a dark sense of humor. And he'd say something like that as a joke. In high school I had a family emergency that due to circumstances I had to take care of 2 of my mentally handicapped family members for a week by myself. I went to explain the situation to my teacher, and what did she tell me? She said that I should either put them out of their misery or lock them in a room and not feed them. Double quote. Another teacher even heard it and was appalled by her. I honestly never looked at my homeroom teacher the same, and I would always try to miss that class whenever I had the chance to. She was a mean teacher and I really hope she rots in hell for some of the stuff she did to people.